Hello, and in this episode I'm going to start to work on the whiskers. To start with, I first need to sketch in some of the whiskers. Now to do this I'm going to use the blunt H pencil, and if I make any mistakes I can quite easily erase this. Now you don't want to do too many whiskers at a time because it does become very confusing otherwise, so it's literally just doing a few at a time. I would also say that whiskers are probably the hardest, the most time-consuming thing on a picture that I would have to do. But I find that it is well worth taking the time to do them and get them right. You don't have to do them all in one go, and I generally will take a few days to do them. I just do a few at a time, starting at the top, then I'll do some at the bottom, and then fill in the gaps in the middle and just slowly build them up. Now that's some of the whiskers sketched in, and what I need to do now is to engrave them into the paper. And to do this, I'm going to use a 9H pencil. Now for any of the materials that I recommend, I've put a link in the description below. So if you want to check those out, then just click on the link. The first line with the 9H is usually quite simple, but when you have to draw a second line, that becomes a little bit more difficult as you have to follow along parallel with the first. But as you get nearer towards the tip, the whisker has to narrow, and then eventually the two lines will converge. And the bit left in between the two lines is what gives you the whisker. I always start with the whiskers which are either on their own or in front of others, because it then becomes a little bit more tricky as you start to draw the ones behind. For example here, the whisker that I am now working on goes behind the one that I've just done. So what I do is I will run the line up to the first whisker, and because the lines of the original whisker are engraved in, when the pencil hits that whisker it will stop because it will hit the groove. I then carefully move to the other side of the whisker and then continue, and then that way the whisker will be behind. I then continue this until the first few whiskers are done. Now 9H pencils are incredibly hard, so when sharpened they generally stay sharp for a good few months, so they tend to last pretty much forever. I have also as well done another video on whiskers, so I've put a link in the description below, so if you want a little bit more information then why not, after you've watched this video, go over and check that one out. So that's the first few whiskers all engraved. And what I now need to do is to remove the initial sketch which I did with the H pencil. And to do this, I just simply use the putty eraser. I can run it over the surface of the whiskers and that will just remove that tone that I put down with the H pencil. But the engraving will stay there, so the whiskers are now permanent. I can now start to build some of the darker tone around the whiskers. And to do this, I first use a 2B pencil, but this one is sharpened. It's not dead sharp, and it's just used just to get a bit of tone close to the edge of the whisker. Now, because the lines around the whisker are engraved, the pencil will actually run along the edge of it, so it won't actually go into the actual white part of the whisker itself. After this, I then use a dead blunt 2B pencil and 4B pencil to just build up a stronger depth of tone around the whisker. As I said earlier, this is a very time consuming process, but it is well worth the time to do it to get the result. Now, there is still plenty to do. The shadow and shading needs to be applied to the whiskers, which will be done at the end. Plus also the fur texture needs to be put around them, and that will really start to make them stand out. So hopefully you found this video useful, and if you have, please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.